Good afternoon. This is the Townsend Finance Committee, August 16th meeting, calling to order at 4:13 p.m. And could I have a roll call vote, voice vote for members?
Gerald Bazikis, yes, here.
Mark Hussey here.
Andrea Wood here.
On Hayes here. With that, we have 4 members. We have quorum. So we are good to go. We are recording this meeting and over Zoom, and it's not being played live at this point on Channel 9. And on the preliminaries 1.4, the additions and deletions, I don't have anything to add to the agenda. This is mainly a work session to review the FY23 budget review process and in preparation for a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen on August 30th. Anybody else have anything the Finance Committee needs to discuss while we're in session? Nothing being heard, we'll continue on with the work session. And let me get to Zoom and share. I lost my Zoom connection. Let me come back in. My apologies.
Don?
Yep.
What time did you call the meeting to order?
4:13 p.m.
Thank you.
So I lost my connection again. So I gotta work on this.
That's
Okay, Andrea, I had just sent you a file. It is just a couple of thoughts that I had that I wanted to at least get on paper before we. Before I lost my train of thought on it, so today's meeting was just to go over, make sure we capture if everybody's thoughts and ideas for a review process or a review of the FY23 budget process. Things that went well, things that didn't go well, things we want to try to improve on, and then anything specific that we should go back and take a look, maybe take a look at the FY23 budget, or even more as we prepare for the FY24 budget, that we, if there was something that we can improve, we do improve it. So, and I apologize, I'm just getting back in. Partly will let me in a second here, then I can share.
And Don, do you want me to give you the screen sharing?
Yes, I think you gave it to me.
Okay, just in case, I'll double check.
Yeah, no,
Oh, there
I'm
you
good.
go.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
thank you. And so, close this. So, again, this was just some thoughts of mine as a structure to capture it. If we want to take it, modify it, add to it, delete from it, we can. I just wanted in general, and I'm losing my connection again.
Was it Wi-Fi? Your Wi-Fi?
It's the Wi-Fi, it keeps on dropping out. I don't have a big strong signal here. So I'll have to work trying to get the town website or the town.
So I guess at this point, do we know, what do we feel like? Well,
Well, it's kind of like, it's just a thought. I don't want to say everything.
yeah, no, I understand. I understand. I don't know
but-
what I could comment on,
Yeah.
you know, being new though, too,
Yeah.
so.
No. It's kind of like, and you did come in partway through.
Mhm.
It kind of,
I know the bumps in the road. I don't think all
Yeah.
the departments gave us enough information. Some did,
Okay.
some didn't. That's just my thought.
My thought on that is the miscellaneous.
Again,
It
that's,
needs
yeah,
to be a little more specific.
when there's three miscellaneous lines in one bunch, it's like. And we talked about that before, I think, so.
We did.
so just capturing it. It looks like I'm not gonna be able to capture and share. Andrea, by any chance, did you get a copy of that file I just sent?
I don't know how to keep you and access that.
Okay. It's no big, it's not a big deal. I will, we'll go through live, so if you, okay. We'll hit it, and my spelling is gonna be off, so we'll,
I think spelling mistakes can be forgiven. At least,
yeah,
at this point.
yeah, it's kind of, well. I'll keep on trying to connect so you can see what we're capturing. Same with Teresa, I apologize. It's kind of like, I don't have a good connection that keeps on going. So we have multiple miscellaneous lines in department budgets. But need clarification, and I'm gonna say upfront would make, yeah, would make it easier. And again, they.
I don't know, I
Even,
haven't been.
and I'm also gonna say including, what were they, miscellaneous supply line, or,
Yeah, just
Multiple
miscellaneous
suppliers, yeah.
items. There was, you know, several lines within one department.
Well, not only that, everybody used miscellaneous for different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
so
Not that-
we're saying consistent, yeah.
You know, I think one thing that actually went well was that Saturday, even though it was
Okay.
a long Saturday, you know.
Yeah,
Work
okay.
session. And
The work session.
Right, with the departments
Yeah.
coming in with an allotted time, you know? Only they all should come in prepared this time. I didn't think they all were.
I have something right at the very beginning of things that I don't think was well done.
Okay.
And that's that the selectmen are supposed to review everything because they have all the worksheets and stuff and come up with a budget letter. Well, apparently last year I was the only one who got the budget letter that said 3% raise, no new hours, no new
Mhm.
employees. The selectmen throughout the budget process added both hours and new personnel, and apparently they met with different departments through it because they reduced some things, didn't go away with them,
Mhm.
do away with them, rather, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I would like a budget letter this year that truly reflected the selectmen's intentions, because I don't believe that one did.
Okay. So I'm gonna put bumps in the road because the budget process did not follow the selectmen's budget letter.
And
Is-
another thing, those two things that you sent, those two documents that are on the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
Someone has to do some serious, I assume it would fall to the selectmen, I'm not sure. Some
Mhm.
serious reorganization of the capital planning committee. Because as I read that portion of the document, it certainly didn't go that way last year. And I don't believe it has for quite a long time.
Yeah. Okay, let me just. um, Okay, so. Okay, I had a couple of things in here, so I'm gonna take what you had said. Review the process, and again, that process, was signed by prior selectmen, budget.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be sensitive about that, though. I just think you have to say, going forward, make sure that what the selectmen say the budget is, that we stay with it.
And, in the capital planning, committee. Because I don't think we ever, and again, that could be tough, but the capital planning committee, if it's defined as 7, I don't know that there was enough.
I don't think there was 3.
Right, and it's kind of like, and if that's the case, 3 never hits a quorum, and can you really have a meeting? So to Andrea's point, maybe looking at the committee, how it's, and how its assignments are in where they are. And again, I know some committees, when you have a committee defined as a specific size and is supposed to be there, you need to hit a quorum every time. There are committees that can be formed where, based on the number of people assigned, you have a quorum based, so if the
Right.
3 people were assigned, a quorum would have been 2.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, so take a look at that budget process and see if we can't align better with what we're able to get for people on the capital planning committee.
Well, one of the things like on capital planning, for example, if the committee was not formed, people didn't volunteer for it or weren't appointed to it or whatever happened, then perhaps a policy should be developed on how to approach capital planning when that happens. Ross
Yeah.
just took it over and kind of did it, but it was not, as policy wise, and it just didn't work.
It kind of happened the year before the same way.
Yeah,
I was chair at the time.
I remember one time when you were the only member appointed to it.
All right. Yeah. It's a tough committee. I'll say that.
Okay, so we're, okay. Okay, so, and again, what the document that you read, it is, it had some items. One I also put in there for the procedure. It had definitions for when we should meet with the school committee and items like that, and I thought that was a good guideline. And had I seen that document earlier in the budget process, we may have had that meeting. I didn't find that document until probably the April timeframe, so it was well past the time for meeting with the school committees at that point. So I thought that process really had a good outline of what we should be looking for, and number one, meeting with the external groups like the school committees, and also the timelines on the department. It had good timelines, but when I looked at, and one of the things I thought was really a bump in the road, was our timing. We didn't have a budget until maybe the day before or the day of town meeting. And we were in the process of printing the warrant articles while people were walking in the building. I thought if we follow the timelines that are outlined in the document, it would be a little smoother, and that's where this postmortem comes in. That was a huge bump as far as I was concerned.
Absolutely.
We were the late finalization, I'll call it.
We couldn't figure out what the override was gonna be. That was,
Right.
was,
And the
that was
numbers,
that
rather
was the
embarrassing.
other,
and the numbers changed.
And the numbers.
and the
changed.
numbers kept changing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think we need to stick more to the guidelines of
process,
what people
yeah.
have to meet.
right. And we need to follow them too.
Yep.
It's kind of like, because when I read that procedure, if we don't have things in place, the fallback is the default of the prior year budget with the selectmen letter recommendations added to it, and that's the budget going forward.
Right.
We need to really follow that going forward.
Just to mention something, and I'll send it to everybody after this meeting, but I did go to the new selectmen's training that they had at Fort Devens, and that was the number one complaint or problem that people addressed. And they had a bunch of slides on it, a bunch of discussions on it, getting those meetings squared away early with the school committee, setting a timeline. They set sample timelines of meeting with the school committee and straightening out that budget. And everybody said, oh yeah, it's great on paper, but try to make it happen. And you know, so it certainly is something that we should put down there, but I think we need to just really push, and I will send you the timeline they said to try to push for. But I don't see any reason why we can't meet with the school committee members and get a sense of how they feel the budget is going to be looked at earlier and things like that, early in the process.
Right, and put where we are, if we have, if we have knowledge of where we think the budget's going for the next year, we can let them know.
Exactly.
Where
But I
we
will
stand.
send the slides over because they were pretty they were pretty much like what we have set out too. But you're absolutely right. We have to start the process a lot earlier. We have to have a lot more meetings with the formalized meetings with the school committee on what they're doing.
Kinda-
And it's not just the finance committee. This has to fall to the selectmen as well.
No, I understood, and we'll, again, everything, I think everything last year was pretty big learning curve. Okay,
One of the questions I'd like to ask, it has to do with all this, in a sense, and doesn't as well, is to what degree are we going to follow the recommendations from the Collins Institute, which was one of those
mhm,
documents that you forwarded us from online.
right, yeah,
Because if we if we follow it closely,
Mhm.
it almost would set up a, I forget what it's called when you have a heading and then you have subheadings under it, and then you have another heading, and so you use them mostly to in English work. But you could use it here too on how to address these things, because we've not really followed the Collins Institute thing, and I believe we paid a good deal of money for it.
Right.
Some of the things, though, I think we also could modify, because I think that too many policies that are put forward from groups like the Collins Institute and other people who do studies for you don't understand the dynamic of your town, nor the participation of your town. It's bigger than it has to be. We could make it smaller and more intimate and accomplish our purpose better. Outline was the word I wanted. If the Collins Institute would almost provide a budgeting outline for us.
Yeah, and Andrea, I have to admit, I have a lot of problems with the Collins Institute of Study. You know, how it addresses things like the recreation department specifically and some others. Because in a lot of areas, those should be self-funded, and there didn't seem to be any, it said, you know, a director should make, you know, X amount of thousands of dollars, which resulted in a 26% raise, but it didn't address that it's her duty to fund that part of her salary. So it
Yeah.
didn't. So I think we need to address that too as selectmen. If we're gonna follow that, then things like the, you know, different places in the town, like the, anyway, so recreation to be one, the town, land use, et cetera, would be another. They should get to the point where they're self-funded, in my opinion.
Well, and another thing too, and I know I'm not assigning bad intentions to anyone or anything else, please. But it seems to me that too many of the positions we have, like land use, are not really defined well enough. I know there's a job description, but what they're actually to do and to provide to various departments or whatever is really not very clear.
Yeah, and that's one, you know, that if you look at other towns, even towns outside, that's another example of one that the goal should be that land use is self-funded.
Yes. And then the other thing, last week it has to do with this, but in a way doesn't have to do with this. I needed something to watch while I ate my dinner. So I turned on YouTube, and it just so happened that there was an emergency meeting of the Conservation Commission. So I thought, oh, well, what the heck? And I listened to it. The meeting was fine. But there was a huge expense for a town bridge on the corner of, I think I have Smith Street and I can't remember the location of it. But anyway, the problem is that when these expenses come up, it's not the finance committee's job to say whether it's a good project or a bad project, and we should absolutely stay away from that. But to know the potential of this extra expense does come under our purview. The communications regarding finances in general in departments and their expenses is extremely poor. and we have to improve that.
I would agree.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to capture that thought, but,
Yeah, I would like to preface it in saying though, I do believe it is improving. That's my hope. I do believe now that we have some, I guess, steadiness.
Mhm.
Um, a full-time town administrator, a board of selectmen that's a little more permanent, committees are starting to fill up, et cetera. I'd like to see that that's all improving. So I would almost address it as, now that we have, now that this can, improve, continued improvement in communications instead of saying that communications in the past was bad, address it as we want going forward, we want good communication, good communications to continue.
I agree with that to a degree. I think you and the Board of Selectmen are better informed on the activities in individual departments expense-wise. I don't think it filters down to us.
Yeah, but that's our fault if it isn't.
Well,
Right.
and I think, yeah, I sort of go with one of the items that I had put on the bottom of my list since I just saw it because I visited the town website. When we approved the FY '23 budget, there is right now a position posted for the senior center for an assistant director, activities coordinator. I did not see that in the budget, and I didn't see a line for it, in there, so I don't know what the impact is. Is it an additional position? Is it somebody that's getting a title change? And is there any financial impact on it? It's kind of like, so when we do that, we have an item, it's exactly that. Is there an impact onto the budget as a result of what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
And posting these positions. It's unclear, but maybe there needs to be,
Yeah, I definitely think we should bring that up, because I am
Yeah.
still being the new person there. I'm
Mhm.
still in the dark on a lot of things too. And I'm always asking those questions. And, a lot of times it's an opera position and I'm like, well, how does that affect the
Mhm.
budget? That just throws a whole new can of worms into it.
It does if it's gonna be a line that goes on past so an opera fund is non-recurring revenues. When we read that budget procedure, it says the budget should be built on,
Taking that off.
well, yeah, it's kind of like, it's built on only recurring revenues such as the tax revenue, the cherry sheets,
Yeah.
and everything, everything else, the ambulance fund, all those things that we have as our regular revenue. That's what the budget should be built on, and that's what we put in. If you have one-off expenses, you can certainly have them pop into the budget, but you pay them in that year with those one-time funds.
Right.
They don't become, or if they are to become part of the ongoing budget, maybe there's got to be that justification of how we're gonna see that in the budget and how we're going to be able to afford it going forward.
Another thing too, when we go, it wouldn't be the same every year. However, the selectmen hired Ross to do the 3
Mhm.
tasks for next year, and he comes under their professional services. Now, he was never designated under the budget. I didn't know he was going to be hired to do these things. It's fine that he is. He may be a great help. So I think maybe when we do the budget sheet itself, they should tell us what professional services they already anticipate hiring to. Now, there'll be some that just come up and they have to hire someone that's a given. But some of them they know ahead of time. And they just bury it in there and we don't know. We don't know the cost. We don't know the potential.
Right.
Would it help if, now that I'm starting to understand a little more at the meeting, that when I join your meeting, I have like almost like an outline item of any budget items that were discussed at the selectmen meeting?
I would think it couldn't hurt.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I go and I get a lot of those to a lot of your, one of the things that's bad in discussion in general, I went to the water department meeting last night and they talked about working on some of the pumps. It was very interesting. But never once did they mention cost. And so I asked, but I think, you know, they'll talk about the project itself perhaps, but we don't have any idea of the cost. And sometimes I wonder if they've put forth the need before they found out whether we could afford that need or not.
Okay, yeah, and it depend, I suppose it depends on the particular projects. I know Dave had come to us and described some of the projects that he was going to work on. And we did approve money and we reallocated money that had been on some other projects for them. So they may have considered them. But maybe it's worth that conversation and an update. We haven't done this before, and I'll throw it on the list. You know, such as the big one that's coming, you know, not that we voted to approve up to the 14.9 million for the new water treatment plant. And to get updates and statuses on that. Generally, their budgets and their expenses are being paid by the water receipts. And that's where it comes from. So we're not, that one's a little harder, but it's good to keep an eye on, and because they need, if they do draw it down and they don't have any money in their water receipts account, they're gonna have to be looking to us in the town to either do another warrant article and bring it to a special, so that we can pay for those projects. So,
One of the things you have to remember, not all taxpayers are water takers, but all water takers are taxpayers. So in a way, in keeping track of the expenses more accurately than we do, to present them is giving the taxpayer / water taker a better perspective of where he is, what his costs are going to be. And that's what our obligation is supposed to be, is to recommend support, you know, yada yada, the best deal for the taxpayer. And in this case, though it won't affect everyone, it certainly will affect many.
yeah.
And a lot of times on upcoming expenses, I don't think someone can inquire when we got it, but more what I'm looking for is just a heads up. We have this new thing has come up. It's going to cost us $14,000. Boom. You know, we have to do it. You know, whatever needs repairing or whatever. Now, maybe we can get us through insurance. Maybe they can get it somewhere else, but that we know the potential. That way, when we have municipal transfers at the end of the year and the like, it would be much easier to distinguish between what was just budget overspending, which happens, or a true emergency that caused them to spend more for a particular project than they had anticipated.
Another option, I guess, I like to bring up only because it was my first day on the job was that Saturday that everybody was working like crazy. It just seemed to me that the finance committee was just, I don't know the best way to put it, but we're just weren't asked early enough for alternate plans. And weren't even asked early enough, like, is the Proposition 2.5 override the right way to go? It never seemed to me that that was the finance committee's idea, and yet for some reason it floated forward unopposed.
It seemed like on nearly everything, we were almost the last to know.
Yeah, it was quite obvious to me.
Yeah.
As a new person coming in, and I don't know how we address that, but I mean, that's the whole purpose. We're there. I mean, I would rely on you heavily, and it just seemed like that's not what was occurring. I like to see your input, your ideas a bit about, you know, our tax rate on business. Should it be the same as a tax rate on individuals? Things like that I thought I would be getting from the finance committee. I'm not getting. All I'm getting is reactions to things that you don't find out about until the last minute.
That's a very true statement.
Yep.
And I'll say it if it's easier if it comes from me. But it has to be said.
Okay, so, and I apologize, we started late, it's 10:05, and we have the hard stop at 5, so. Just, gonna go down some of the things we've mentioned a little bit on the Collins. And in the Collins document, they have also provided us a spreadsheet for 5-year historical spending. And I don't think that was filled out last year, so that it was filled out in it would be the FY 22 budget. So in May of 21, we had it, but when we did the FY 23 budget, that 5-year plan. So I think it comes down to a little bit going back to that document, looking at it and identifying whose responsibility it is to see some of these. And I'll go along when we're talking 5 years. So that's the 5-year historical. Collins gave us a spreadsheet. The DLS has a 5-year future budget estimate that I'd like to see us use, because that helps us plan going forward. Are we going to be, you know, as we add positions, expenses, whatever, are we going to be, you know, does it look like we're going to be able to handle it within the confines that we have of the 2.5?
It would probably
Just an
help the other
increase.
departments understand. if they
Exactly,
would
when
have it.
when they have something,
Absolutely.
let them plug it in, see how it looks to them.
Right.
Do I have to change something else
Exactly.
in order to hit it?
It's just a really good idea.
Mm,
A little bit of work up front, but it's gonna save us a whole bunch of work going down the road.
And some of the things that we had talked about, reviewing the FY 22 end of year transfers and see if there's an impact on the FY 23 budget. That was something we did a lot of moving of the money in the end of the year. And we changed the budget lines and we built our FY 23 budget from the FY 22 budget. So it's kind of like before those changes. So we potentially have the issue that if we move, say, $30,000 from insurance into somebody's expense line, that's $35,000 that we didn't base the FY 23 budget on. So I think that's something, as we do that change, we're trying to get better, and we just want to make sure that we're not going to run into those same kind of issues when we get to next year. And again, one of the things that we can look at going forward, were there surprises? I talked about the reserve fund transfers that we did. We also had those reserve fund transfers, and those were unexpected expenses that came in. But is there something that can help look at planning better? We maybe didn't use them in the FY 23 budget, but as we go forward and come into say the fall special meeting, is there something that we can address if it looks like lines are going to be out of balance because of something we didn't anticipate, that we can make those corrections in the special town meeting in the fall. Okay, we talked about the budget process and the dates that's been in there. I'm just going over my list. The capital planning, we had a list of projects that were on the list and presented but not funded, so we didn't do them this year. And it's not just capital planning, but some of the projects, like the records archives and things like that. It's just something we don't want to lose track of or just have pop up in the budget sometime next year. These are like just things we don't want to fall off and bring on the table. We want to maybe keep an eye on them, keep them in the view of everybody's. And again, because we keep on, in a lot of cases, as we said, we keep on putting off these projects and kicking the can down the road. And it's like, we either need to, if it's something we want to do or need to do, we need to get it done and prepare for it on the budget. We just can't keep kicking it down the road forever. The other one that comes to mind was the painting of that fire station, the old Harbor Fire Station, in pretty tough shape. So those are the kinds of things. I just don't
It
want to.
wasn't a huge amount of money either.
It wasn't a huge amount of money,
needed
but
it.
we needed it.
Yeah.
We were done.
That's how tough things were.
So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, so, that's the kind of thing. It's kind of, and then a few things I just threw on the end first to sort of keep an eye on. The school budgets, what I was able to read off the state website is that they're going to fund the transportation at 85% this year. And when I looked at the numbers, it looked like the school budget just for transportation is going to go up for about 4,000 or 400,000. 400,000. So again, that gets to our communication with the school districts, just to make sure that they put together the budget with the expectation that we were going to get more, and then have that conversation. How does this relate to all those conversations we had? Do they feel comfortable that going forward, they're going to be in a better place with the transportation budgets and things?
Are they meeting in person now, or are they still doing Zoom?
I think they're still doing Zoom. But I would have to go on. We're getting to that point too, where, I think it was March of 23 that they extended the Zoom meetings to. So I think they're still doing, the governor's, allowed Zoom meetings out to March of 23. Then I also put the cherry sheet estimates. Again, I looked at what we had on the books, and these are estimates so far that for the budget that just passed, that it's not finalized or anything, but it looked like we had a pretty a significant increase in that on that line. So, it's kind of like, but I don't know what we put in, I hate to say it, but I don't know what we put into the budget for that line to be for the FY 23. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, we want to go back and make sure that what we had as expectations and put into our budget, are we meeting them?
Yeah.
And I jumped over it. I also thought we should look at the impact of, we did use pretty much all of our free cash last year to pay for capital projects
Right.
and things, and I haven't seen the close of the books for the June, so it's kind of like to see what our full budget was and what the expenses were and how much it's unverified at this point, but what that free cash number may look like
Actually, no.
for going forward. So. And then last but not least is, start thinking about FY 24. Because November will be here before we know it.
Yeah.
And we'll really be pushing it. Is there anything else? I know I jumped real quick at the end to hit those. If you have any other thoughts going forward, I just want to really have this list so that we sort of have a checklist so that we can work with the selectmen and see that, I don't want it, so that they can see where we're coming from, where our concerns may be, and trying to, again, this is about trying to make the process better next year so that we're not,
Struggling like we
we're not
were.
struggling like we were.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, so there's all of those things to understand things that were funded with ARPA and where we think we're gonna be. Because I don't think the town gave us what their taste of a 2.5 override was gonna be. And it's gonna be, and it's gonna continue to be there, so we need to be prepared going in that this year's budget is gonna be a lot tighter, unless we look at these things or last item, is there additional revenue that we can get? Do we want to try to task the properties committee with coming up with something and taking a look? Are there other properties that are available for sale and some revenue?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and again, that, on the other side, you're going to build houses, there's going to be some revenue that comes with that, but then there's the expenses that go
The services that go.
the services and school and,
Yeah.
schools and all that, so. Just lots to consider on both sides of it. Revenue is good, but if the cost is gonna eat away at it, then you don't have a good solution. You won't have anything
Right.
that's sustainable. So we wanna get to that sustainable budget. Okay, any last comments, thoughts?
Next meeting, the 30th.
Next meeting is the 30th with the selectmen, a joint meeting, 4:00. Again, so.
Instead of
2 weeks.
Thursday, that's a Tuesday.
That's a
then?
Tuesday again, yeah. So, if we're good, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 5:03.
I make a motion, we adjourn at 5:03.
Second that.
Okay, we had a motion and a second, and roll call vote, please.
Jeremy Lucas, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Hayes, yes. With that, we stand adjourned. And again, if you have a thought, you want me to put it on the list, I'll do, there is no communication, so it's just one way. I'll put everything I have and send it out. And if we need to modify it, we'll modify it at the selectmen's meeting on the joint on the 30th. So expect that to follow on.